Hello, my name is Rachel and I'm here today with some graphic novel reviews. I haven't done any reviews for anything that I've read this year, which has been really weird. I normally do reviews every single month of everything I read, so it's felt weird, and I have been reading. I do have some fiction books I've read, some non-fiction. The majority has been graphic novels, so I thought I would sit down and talk to you about the graphic novels that I've been reading today. The first one is Be Prepared by Vera. Brosgal. This is a graphic novel I think that I read last year and I absolutely adore it. It's so good. It's by Vera Brosgal, who is Russian, and it's like semi-autobiographical. Most of this stuff happened, although she says some of it is a little bit amped up because it's obviously a story and she wants to keep people interested, but it is based on her time as a teenager when she goes to a Russian camp for the summer. This is exactly what I like in graphic novels. It's about a young girl going to a summer camp and finding herself. For some reason I always vibe with those sorts of stories, and this one is no different. This is one of my favourite graphic novels that I've ever read. I absolutely love it. It was just lovely to get back into this. I started rereading this when I was at school, the school that I work at, not go to. I work in a school library. I started rereading this just in between when kids would come and take books out. I was like, oh, I'll read a few pages, and then obviously we got isolated and everything, so I was like, I'll just sit and finish it then. As I've said before, the whole thing has this like green wash underneath it, which I just absolutely love. It's the same as Vera Brosgal's other story that I've read, which is Anya's Ghost. That one has a blue wash underneath everything, and I just love it. I just think it's wonderful. So yeah, I wasn't supposed to be talking about that because it was a reread, but apparently I am. And the next one we have that's sort of a reread is Heartstopper Volume 3. So by sort of, I mean that I keep up with this comic online and read it, but this is the first time I've read it in a physical format, but also I knew everything that was going to happen, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to say that much about this because this is volume 3, but this graphic novel series follows Nick and Charlie and finding their identities, their sexual identities, and forming a relationship with each other. And it's wonderful and I love it, and I love this one specifically because they went to my favourite place on earth, which is Paris. Oh, it was wonderful. Wonderful. Love this. So then we're going to move on to some graphic novels that I've never read before, so it'll be fun to talk about. So the first book that I actually think I finished in 2020 was Kid Gloves, 9 Months of Careful Chaos by Lucy Knighsley. So previously I've read Relish, I've read French Milk, and I've read Something New, which is all about her getting married. And the one about her getting married was my favourite. I think either that or Be Prepared was my favourite graphic novel of 2019. I absolutely loved them. So I couldn't wait to jump into this one because this one is similar to the Getting Married one, where it focuses on her being pregnant and all of that stuff, and it didn't disappoint. Absolutely loved it. I love her illustrations, and all the way through like she has like facts about parenting. It was really good for like finding out little things as well. Like she talks about having a miscarriage in this, and she talks about how common miscarriages are. Like it wasn't until she'd had one that everyone was like, oh yeah, miscarriages are really common in new mothers. I've had one. Like loads of people were just like mentioning miscarriages and how common they were all of a sudden, and it was quite a surprise because I didn't know that they were as common as she was saying, and I was like, oh, like this is scary. I didn't realise this was a really, really common thing, but apparently it is. So yeah, it was really cool to find out more about that and to find out more about being pregnant and having children and all those things. Next we have another author who I had already read some stories by, so I was really, really excited because she wrote my favourite ever graphic novel, which is The 100 Nights of Hero, and it is of course Glass Town by Isabel Greenberg. I've read both of Isabel Greenberg's other books and adored them, loved them. I haven't read the Goddess one, which I really, really do want to read. I need to get that one soon. But yeah, I've read all the early Earth books and loved them. So this was the one I was a little bit unsure of, but also really excited for, because I was like, this is the first story she's got that's outside of early Earth, so will I still like it? Do I just like that universe? But at the same time I was like, this follows the Brontes, and I love the Brontes. And what I should have realised is this follows the Brontes and their obsession with writing little stories and staying in a world of stories when they were teenagers. which is basically what Early Earth is. So I should have realised that this would be amazing and pretty much like of a similar vein and done really well. So art style wise, this book is by Isabel Greenberg, so it's obviously wonderful, and it chronicles the relationship and stories that were told by the 4 Brontes siblings. So that's Anne, Charlotte, Emily and Bramwell the brother, which I didn't realise how involved Bramwell was with these stories. That was really cool. I also didn't realise that they had 2 other sisters who died really young. Didn't know that. So it was cool to like find out more about the Brontes, learn more about this sort of world that they had, this writing world that they had, and I think it gave you a really strong connection to Charlotte Bronte and a lot about her life, which I feel like I didn't know as much about. So yeah, really loved this book. Would really highly recommend it. It was wonderful. So the next 3, I'm gonna go in order of my favourites. They are all LGBT graphic novels, so if you're looking for LGBT graphic novels, these are a great place to start. Also, Lucy Knighsley is bisexual, and this one has an LGBT romance at the heart of it. So yeah, these are all great LGBT graphic novels if you're looking for some. Well, I should say LGBT plus actually. I always forget to add the plus on the end, which is stupid. But the next 2 are less to do with sexual identity and more to do with like gender identity and that sort of stuff. The first one is Genderqueer by Maia Kobabe. So this is Maia's autobiographical memoir type graphic novel, which is again one of my favourite types of graphic novels. Absolutely love a memoir in a graphic novel style, one of my favourite things. So I found this in Gaze the Word in London and was super excited about it. I'd just heard a few people mention it, but I hadn't heard loads about it. Art style wise, it has a very simple style, but I think it's really easy to understand and really easy to sort of connect to the text. So in this one, representation wise, you have more like gender fluidity and being gender non-binary. I think queer is the best word for this book, because you have someone who is kind of trying to figure all of these things out, but in trying to figure everything out they kind of test a lot of different avenues, so you have a lot of representation in this book, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was like representation for that. So like at one point they have a relationship with a man and they have a relationship with a woman, but I wouldn't say it was bisexual rep, I wouldn't say it was straight rep or gay rep, because they end up being asexual. So like it I don't know, it kind of varies around and represents a lot of different things, but more with someone branching out and trying to figure out who they are, which I thought was really interesting. I thought it was a really interesting thing to have put in here. There are some really detailed sections in here that I found, number one, made the idea of someone being non-binary a lot more understandable to me, and someone being asexual a lot more understandable to me, because I think if you aren't asexual it's quite hard to understand. They describe in detail like going to a smear test screening and how that makes them feel, and it is, oh my god, it's horrendously horrific. If you triggered for anything like that, wouldn't read this, but it made it more understandable the way that they thought about themselves and their gender identity and all that sort of stuff. So it was really good in terms of like making things more understandable. I would say this is a really informative book and I really did enjoy it. I wouldn't say it was like my favourite graphic novel ever, but it was definitely enjoyable. Next favourite graphic novel that I read yesterday, and it was The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. So I keep seeing this book everywhere. This is like a graphic novel that's getting a lot of hype at the minute. Hype that I actually listen to. I don't really listen to hype around graphic novels that are more like comic booky, but if they're like standalone story-based graphic novels, that is something that I'm interested in. I've been listening to a lot of hype on this and wanting to pick it up. This is about The Prince and the Dressmaker. So we have a dressmaker who works in Paris, and then we have the Prince of Belgium, and he comes to visit Paris. His parents are trying to find him a wife to be the future queen or whatever. When they're there, she designs a dress for someone else and it's quite an edgy dress. He sees this dress and then hires her to be his seamstress, and then tells her his secret that he goes out at night dressed as a woman in drag, and he really enjoys that, and he wants her to make his dresses, and it's all about that whole relationship that develops between them, and the relationship between him and Lady Crystalia, and the way that he feels about being a Lady Crystalia and being dressed up as a woman. It's really interesting. It doesn't represent him as trans, wanting to change himself in any way. It's just like sometimes he wakes up and he wants to wear dresses, and then sometimes he wakes up and he wants to dress like the way he's expected to, like conform to gender roles or whatever, in terms of his dress. And so it kind of just flips between the two. And we also have just the fact that he's straight, which I feel like is really uncommon with representations of people who do drag or dress up or whatever. So yeah, I just found this a really, really cool story. Again, a lot of it centres around Paris, which I loved. Absolutely love Paris. The artwork in here is just so cute. And I'd say this one specifically is definitely a graphic novel that is aimed more at a younger audience. I'd say it was more like a YA teen kind of graphic novel, but that doesn't make it any less accessible, and I really enjoyed it, so I would highly recommend this one. It was such a fun read. And then lastly, we have my favourite of all these graphic novels, which is On a Girl by Maggie Thrash. So this, again, graphic memoir. We love a graphic memoir. Number 2, a girl in a camp over the summer. Love that. That's the second thing. And number 3, someone struggling with their sexual identity and coming to terms with the fact that they might like someone of the same sex. Ding 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 ding, that's everything I like in a graphic novel. So knew this was going to be good, knew this was going to be something I liked. I will say, when I first started this, or when I first looked at it, so I got it from when I got Genderqueer, I got it from Gaze the Word as well, and the only thing that I thought is that the artwork was a bit questionable for me, like I wasn't sure if I'd like it. So this is the art style, and I know when I showed it my best friend, she was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. She reads a lot of graphic novels as well, but actually I absolutely loved it, and by the end I was like, the art style complemented that story so well. I loved Maggie as our main character as well. I think she was one of my favourite things. Most graphic novels have quite a quiet character at the heart of them, especially if they're graphic memoirs, and she isn't like that at all. She's quite outspoken, she interacts with a lot of people, she's quite funny, which I really loved. And this is basically about Maggie going to a camp for the summer and meeting one of the camp counsellors, developing feelings for her, and having her first interaction with a girl in terms of like being attracted to them, wanting to have a relationship with them, that sort of thing. To be honest, I've pretty much told you everything it's about, and I don't want to ruin it for anyone, because I would highly recommend anyone read this who likes the kind of graphic novels I like, because this is brilliant. I feel like I just want to talk about it more, but it was absolutely beautiful. I love this. I definitely want to see if Maggie Thrash has any other books and try and look them up, check them out. It's definitely my favourite one that I read. One of the things that I love the most is that I think she was a teenager in the 90s or the early 2000s. But I think, no, it'll be 90s, won't it? She has a huge crush on a guy from the Backstreet Boys, and every time she mentioned it, it would just make me like cry laughing, because I don't know, it just seemed so weird. They just seemed like something that was so long ago, but they weren't. Like, they're not even a very old band, to be honest, but like it just felt so weird for someone to be crushing so hard on the Backstreet Boys. So yeah, that was quite comical, and there's just a lot of funny moments in this book. I really like it, would highly recommend it. It's a great one. So they are all the graphic novels that I picked up in the last few months. I would recommend them all, to be honest. I haven't disliked any of them. These are great. Also, if you want some LGBT plus ones, these are also great. Look these up. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you've read any of these and want to talk to me about them in the comments below, please do. If you have any graphic novels to recommend to me based off of these graphic novels, that would be great, because I love like these kind of graphic novels and I find them difficult to find sometimes. Thank you very much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!